The Self-Care Learning and Discovery Series is back, and it's bigger and bolder than ever. This is the premier self-care event of the year, bringing together self-care enthusiasts of all backgrounds and disciplines from around the world. The World Health Organization defines self-care as the ability of individuals, families, and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and to cope with illness and disability with or without the support of a healthcare provider. We also know that self-care means different things to different people. What does self-care mean to you? You'll have ample opportunity to reflect on this question during the Discovery Series, with more than 20 interactive virtual sessions organized by self-care experts worldwide. The Discovery Series will elevate cutting-edge research, programming, and advocacy insights across a wide variety of self-care topics, and we encourage you to attend as many sessions as possible, especially on topics that may be new to you. The Self-Care Learning and Discovery Series, a core activity of the Self-Care Trailblazer Group, is organized by the White Ribbon Alliance in partnership with co-sponsor organizations and esteemed steering committee members. We also want to thank all our session organizers and presenters who have voluntarily dedicated their time to curate this event with us. We are pleased to share that every session will offer live, simultaneous interpretation in French, Spanish, and English. To access the interpretation, simply navigate to your meeting controls located at the bottom of your screen. Click on the globe icon labeled Interpretation and select the language you'd like to hear. Joining from your phone, tap on the ellipses to find the interpretation feature and then select your language. Please note, you can switch languages at any time throughout the presentation. The session is now about to begin. Don't forget, whether you're working to influence policies or programs, advance universal health coverage, or improve your own self-care, we hope that you will take the learnings from today's discussion and apply it to your own work. To that end, we invite you to continue the conversation and take action with us by becoming a member of the Self-Care Trailblazer Group. So get curious, jump in, and share your ideas and insights with us. We look forward to advancing self-care together.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, or good night as well, depending on where you're calling in from. A very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for taking the time to join this session in the Self-Care Learning and Discovery series entitled Permission to Take Care of Ourselves, the Importance of Self-Care for Staff and Volunteers at Gender-Based Violence and LGBTIQ Organizations. My name is Leah Odell-Benson. I'm the Deputy Director of Impact and Learning at the Stephen Lewis Foundation, and I'm really proud to moderate this important conversation today with our speakers. So we're just going to start with a brief land acknowledgement. I am calling in from Ottawa, which is the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people who have lived on this land since time immemorial. I am grateful to have the opportunity to be present on this territory. Ottawa is Canada's capital. It is where the Parliament buildings are, where the Prime Minister and Governor General's residences are, and where many significant government departments are. Despite the progress and promises made on the Truth and Reconciliation 94 calls to action, there remains considerable work to be done by the federal government of Canada and its offices to end inequalities and remove systemic barriers for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Ottawa is also the land where I have a home with my family. It is a physically beautiful place, and I have the opportunity to be very close to nature, expansive space, to trails, trees, rivers, and lakes, which is a true privilege. I walk in nature often, and I do not take that for granted. I'm very conscious of all the land provides for me and my family and my community. As an organization, the Stephen Lewis Foundation acknowledges that our presence in Canada is a direct outcome of the settler colonial state, whose policies of expulsion from the land and cultural genocide continue to impact Indigenous communities today. The Stephen Lewis Foundation is committed to the principles of social justice, equality, solidarity with our African-led community-based partners as they continue to face the effects of HIV and AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa. Consistent with those values, the Stephen Lewis Foundation commits to a journey of ongoing learning, reflection, relationship building, and solidarity, with Indigenous communities in Canada. So for those of you who don't know about the Stephen Lewis Foundation, for 20 years, the foundation has been committed to supporting and funding community-led organizations working on the front lines of the HIV and AIDS epidemic in countries across sub-Saharan Africa. We truly believe, and very deeply so, that the knowledge and expertise of these community-led organizations is pivotal in understanding the needs of communities, that they are the experts, they know what's best for their communities, and they hold many of the answers to so many of the public health challenges that we're experiencing as a world today. So this discussion is an extension of that belief in the power of people and the power of relationships. I think in the context of self-care, all too often, in my mind anyways, the idea of self-care gets co-opted to support very individual consumption and to perpetuate a way of superficial coping and adapting to all the various manifestations or symptoms of a very broken system. Being a human on this earth is inherently challenging, and we're all in some way striving for authenticity, accountability, and reciprocity. But I feel compelled to reiterate that this dominant system that we have normalized is what is inherently broken, that people are not inherently broken, that it is a system that is inherently broken and dysfunctional. So today we're going to dig a bit deeper because we have the opportunity to hear from three creative, passionate, and committed community-led organizations and their representatives who the Stephen Lewis Foundation has had the privilege of partnering with for many years in South Africa, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. These three organizations are doing essential work in and for their community, and they're an integral component to that overall work is their conscious efforts to support the well-being of their staff. These three organizations are part of an SLF grant, both of which committed really intentional funds to support staff well-being, where CLO shared with us that their staff not only worked with clients who endure trauma, but also that their frontline staff needs sustained support. They are essential parts of their own communities. The well-being of these staff is no longer a nice thing, but is essential to the change that is needed. So we're going to have some insightful conversation today. We're so happy that you decided and committed to join us on this little journey and this little conversation about what these three organizations are doing to support self-care. And this is self-care not as a means of coping with stress, but as essential to fostering deeper connection and understanding, to catalyzing social change, and to building a healthy future for ourselves and our communities. Self-care is a tool for compassion for ourselves, for liberation, and for connecting us to our collective humanity, first as people on this planet, and then as staff. Each one of these organizations is committed to enriching their communities. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce them. So I'd like to first introduce Phumi Zondi. She's a social worker, a supervisor and clinical director at Sophiatown Community Psychological Services in Johannesburg, South Africa. She's been working with people experiencing marginalization, discrimination, and violence for over 27 years. One of her central concerns is the development of culturally and socially appropriate psychological services. Welcome, Phumi. It's so good to see you and have you. Our next colleague is Sifuka Wari, also known as Biggie, who's a passionate change maker, human rights defender, and activist, known for her work with LGBTIQ communities in Uganda, where she works as a executive director of Farouk Freedom and Rome Uganda. So we're really happy to have Wari with us. Welcome, Wari. And I'd also like to introduce Dina. Dina is working with an organization in Zimbabwe. And I'm sorry, I'm looking for it. I've lost your introductions. Anyway, welcome, and I'm apologizing in advance. I seem to have misplaced the bio for you, but welcome. She's working with organizations in Zimbabwe. She's passionate and committed to working with staff in all aspects of the gender-based work and violence work that happens through Musasa. So welcome to all of you. Phumi, I know you're going to walk us through an exercise to get us started, so it's over to you. However, anyone who needs interpretation, please stay in this main room because we're going to be going into breakout sessions shortly. And if you are, directed into a breakout room, please leave that room and come back. So over to you, Phumi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Um, when we normally have sessions, because we believe that self-care is also collective care. So from time to time, we work in groups, and when we want to stimulate discussions about our wellness or our lack of wellness, or about our sense of feeling overwhelmed by the work that we do, we normally use simple things called check-ins and check-outs, like how you would do at a hotel. So when women are sitting around a circle, we would bring a check-in that is a short, brief prompt for people to finish it off, and it normally stimulates a further discussion. So, for example, we would like ask, finish this prompt. I must just stop. And then people will just add, I must stop pleasing people. I must stop eating unhealthy food. I must stop saying yes when I really mean no. And then that from the answer will then stimulate further discussions that, okay, so who are you pleasing people? Who are you pleasing? Who are you afraid? What makes you afraid to say no? And then we go deeper into issues of socialization. So we are going to try our best to do this creative check-in with everyone that has joined us this afternoon or morning or evening, wherever you are at. And this afternoon's prompt, what we would like you to finish off is I have a right to, since that is quite connected to our theme, which is permission to take care of ourselves. So the question that, or the prompt that we would like you to finish off for yourself is I have a right to. And then just the first few things that come to your mind. And then we are going to break up into groups. And those people who need interpretation will stay in this group. So they won't go in other breakup groups, because the interpreters will stay in this room. And then we will just share what came up for you when you just think, I have a right to. And then after the time, when the time is up, we will come back. Either one of you shares with us what maybe common issues or what you picked up from other people's sharings, or you will then be asked by Leah to put it in the chat. It will depend how we are doing on time. So I hope that makes sense for everyone. And enjoy whilst you're doing it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for those of you who are trickling in from breakout sessions. I hope that went well for you. I hope you had a good opportunity to hear from each other. We have a few minutes now for folks to, if they feel comfortable, to share some of what was discussed in that breakout room, or how that conversation made you feel, or what came up for you as you were having that conversation with folks. Anything that kind of comes to your heart in this moment that you feel you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you and to understand how that session went. So feel free to use the raise hand feature and come off mute, and I will call on you. I know for me, I'll start by saying for me, that was a beautiful moment to hear from everybody. There was definitely a common theme amongst the four of us in relation to some of the things that were coming up. So that was very interesting to hear. Anybody else feel comfortable to share? Kimberly?
Actually, I could defer to my colleague Gloria. She was also in group 2, or maybe I can kick it off and then she can
Why
come
don't you
in.
both go? We have a little bit of time.
Finish it off.
Yeah.
We also, I think, had a very common theme, and that all of us who spoke are working at really demanding emotional jobs, and feeling the pull and tug of work constantly, so that we feel that we have a right to rest, to take a wellness break, to care for ourselves, to prioritize ourselves, to love ourselves. And yet we really struggle to find that time and that right balance. And one of my colleagues who was speaking, Shanita, was just cut off too. So maybe she could come on and finish her train of thought. But Gloria, maybe over to you. And then if Sunitha can come and finish her thinking, that would be great.
Thanks. Thank you, Kimberly. Gloria?
I think I should allow Sunita to go first, and then I will go after.
Okay, hi everyone. I thought it was a technical glitch. As I indicated, I am a social worker in a children's home that's for girls only. And as a social worker, we are so used to taking care of everybody else that our own mental, physical well-being is neglected. To such an extent, it's only when you fall ill, then you realize, hey, you know, you haven't done A, B, C, D. So I think my pre-New Year's resolution is self-love, self-care, and, you know, because there's been a drastic imbalance. And I've got my 2 youth care workers who are with me, and I think they also agree with me that we become so engrossed in our daily functioning that we forget about ourselves. So to pay more attention to ourselves and to make sure we have a balanced life, we talk about it and we preach, but we don't practice what we preach to ourselves. So yeah, you know, thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful share. Gloria, did you want to finish sharing as well? I know you were waiting for that.
Oh yeah, so I think Sunita talked about what I wanted to talk about, but maybe also one other takeaway I got from the conversation is I feel guilty for taking rest so many times, especially when I have a workload. And as many of the speakers in my breakaway room were speaking, I felt like that they did not explicitly mention that maybe they feel guilty, but I felt like so many people are choosing delivery and outputs over their wellness and self-care. So we just have to become more intentional with ourselves about self-care, and that's something only you can do for yourself. Like someone cannot advise or force or inspire self-care out of you, but it's a personal decision that you have to make for yourself and your well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Dina, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, in our group we had slightly divergent feelings, and 2 of us couldn't get the time to finish off what they wanted to say. But the general feeling was that I have a right to express my feelings whenever I feel like, you know, not doing something, or to have some space to express my feelings. I have a right for that. I also have a right to have space for reflection, whatever I'm doing in my work and dealing with colleagues. I also need some time for reflection so that whatever I am doing, I feel confident. That's what I have to do for the moment. And also I have the right to be who I want to be at a particular time in my workplace. Because sometimes we hear these messages to say, be resilient, show some resilience, let's just, go on, let's just do it. But sometimes I feel that I don't have the energy, or I don't have the willpower or the ability. At the moment, I'm breaking, but the system sort of like pushes you to be doing things that you feel you cannot do at that particular moment. And who suffers? Mostly it's the client who will suffer, because I'm not able to give the service that I'm supposed to give. So I have a right also to say how I feel and to be who I want to be or who I can be at that particular moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dina. And thank you for that beautiful session, Bhumi. I feel like it was clearly very effective in getting the conversation started. I think that even though we have a personal responsibility around self-care, we also have to be in enabling environments that are supportive of our needs. And that can be challenging when there is a wider social reality about what we should be doing, could be doing. And I think that's maybe where some of the guilt might potentially come in. We should be busy, we should be working in particular ways, we should be, a lot of should be's, could be's that we put on ourselves in relationship to our environment and our social context. And so I'm really excited, actually. I think this is a really nice launch point for the fishbowl conversations that are coming up, because I think that's an opportunity for us to dig a bit deeper, essentially, to dig a bit deeper in these conversations. And hopefully everybody can find a little piece of themselves in this conversation that our three CLOs are going to have with each other. So a fishbowl exercise, I just want to explain a little bit about what a fishbowl is. It's new for me as well. This is probably my second time in a fishbowl conversation. But we're doing a feminist fishbowl, which is that we're centering the voices of our three community-based partners. And we, as the audience, get to benefit from observing and learning the exchange that otherwise we may not be privy to. So the idea is it feels like they're having a conversation, and we're able to listen to that conversation and hopefully find some nuggets of wisdom and things that we can relate to in that conversation. So that's going to be the format for the fishbowl. And I know, that self-care is clearly a concept that can mean a lot of specific things to specific people. It was just in the intro, actually, that it can mean very, very different things to a multitude of people. So we just want to take some time as a collective to unpack and explore what locally relevant self-care means for the CLOs working in complex realities to support their staff and client. What does it mean? And in so doing, just to try to find a bit of common ground about what organizations are doing as they try to operationalize self-care. What informs their approach to self-care? Especially when you're a feminist organization, what informs that approach? We'll also explore wider structural forces or the root causes of distress that may affect staff well-being, including the implications for living and working in unpredictable or historically colonial context. So much of this is built around the systems that operate in the world, whether that's patriarchy, whether that's capitalism, whether that is, gender-based violence. So many of these feelings that emerge and unwellness evolves from systems that we've normalized that are unhealthy for us. And we try our best to navigate in this world, but much of it is challenges that exist in the world that create so much of the unwellness. And so how do we kind of use self-care as a radical tool? We'll also examine where permission comes from, who grants it, and how to empower organizations to develop trust and collaborate with staff on their own self-care strategies. So I'm just going to start by posing a question to Bhumi so that we can get the conversation ball up in the air. So Bhumi, can you start off by telling us how Sophiatown conceptualizes self-care? What informs your approach? And what does it mean to your work in delivering psychosocial support for economically disenfranchised individuals, families, and communities in distress?
Okay, thank you very much, Leah. For us at Sophiatown, what informs our self-care and wellness approach is that we believe that we use ourselves in the care for people, for clients, for our communities, and we use ourselves as tools in delivering the psychosocial support. And therefore, it follows that if we use ourselves as the tool, the self is the central tool that needs to be cared for, that needs to be developed, that needs to be taken care of so that it can remain a productive tool, if I can use that language. And therefore, we really believe that when you care for another human being who is traumatized, whatever their trauma is, you open yourself to their pain, whilst you also sometimes are working through your own pain, because we are not so separate from the traumas of the people that we work with. We also live in similar contexts. We go through challenges as well. So when we work in these difficult conditions and under systems like you said, Dina, systems that are pushy, systems that are uncaring, governments that are getting more and more and more uncaring towards the work that we do, towards us as a people, towards us as women, towards the LGBTIQ community. It is therefore imperative for us to look after self, because we believe that self is a tool, and if we ignore self, then there won't be a tool to serve the communities. Hence, we say it is not a good to have, it is not an option, it is an important part of the work that should be done. Care for staff should also be part of the work that is done, you know, in a cycle with caring for clients. So I don't know whether that is your experience, Dina, in Musasa.
Dina, you're just on mute.
That definitely is our experience at Musasa. Thank you for those comments, Pumi. I like the way you put it, that we use ourselves as tools. We are tools of the trade. And if you don't look after the tool, then the tool is not able to perform what it is supposed to do. As a community, humanitarian workers, we experience clients coming to us, expressing the horrific scenes, the horrific stories they tell us, painful experiences. And sometimes as workers as well, as volunteers as well, probably some of us have gone through also that. And as a social worker, as a counselor, you are not supposed to express your feelings, how you feel about the situation when you are engaging with a client. And you withhold that, as you withhold those feelings definitely have an impact on you. And opening yourself up to all those stories, it definitely has an impact on you, a negative impact, because these are traumatic stories of people, that the pain they're experiencing, it will definitely touch your core as well. As a human being, we cannot discharge ourselves from our humanity just because we are working with the clients like that. So we take it as if all the workers who are dealing with these kinds of painful stories, gender-based violence especially, and some of these communities that we are working with, it's sort of trauma-informed care that we need as workers, as service providers, that we also share the trauma that they are going through. So self-care is really imperative, because you cannot give out of an empty cup. You cannot pour out of an empty cup. So we ensure that the worker is well aware of the dynamics that are involved, well aware of what should be done, and well aware about what they are actually supposed to do when they are looking after clients like this. And at UMSASA, we are very deliberate about self-care. We are very deliberate about it. We incorporate it in our meetings. We talk about self-care and infuse those values so that it becomes a sort of a corporate culture. And one of our pillars at UMSASA is staff development and staff well-being, so that everyone knows that it's not an optional something that you can choose to say, I can self-care, but it's an imperative, because it is good for you, it is good for your client, it's good for the organization, and in the end, you all end up in a win-win situation, you and your clients, and as well as the organization. Productivity is also increased. So I would put it that way. That's how we do it at UMSASA. Thank you.
To supplement on what you have said, Dina, at Farouk, being a loudly and openly known queer feminist organization, a lot of how we exist and operate and work is very in line with a very famous queer and feminist author called Audre Lorde. And there's this quote I want to talk about, where she talked about self-care, where she said, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It's self-preservation, and it's an act of political warfare. And for us, besides all the other things, we also look at self-care for LBQ women and LGBT communities as an act of political warfare, because we exist and operate in a context where we are heavily marginalized, but where also our autonomy as people, our dignity, our rights are not respected and are violated in all ways. So for us to be intentional about taking care of ourselves, about taking care of our staff, about taking care of our communities is our way of fighting back in one way or another. It's our way of showing them that regardless of all these things that you're putting us through, regardless of how much you're subjecting us to, we are going to make sure that we are doing our best to say well enough to fight, because this is a fight that has been happening for generations, and this is a fight that is also going to happen way after we are gone. So self-care in itself just keeps igniting those people at the front line, like my organization, to keep fighting and handing over to the others, so that as a movement you're able to sustain ourselves, sustain our impact, and also sustain the work that we are doing. Thank you.
I also remember during COVID, when people would say, let's carry on, let's just do it, and things like be resilient, and sort of like forcing people to carry on when they cannot really carry on. And the result was that a lot of people were affected health-wise because of lack of self-care. So lack of self-care, really, it became an occupational hazard during that period. And a lot of care workers, they had no carers. People didn't care about the carers because people were worried about how to look after the survivors, but no one cared about the carers. So we ended up with the casualties during that period. So we really take self-care seriously in our organization, and it's an important and integral part of what we do at UMSASA. We've even introduced the Wellness Fridays, where as an organization, wherever we are, in the shelters, in our one-stop centers, at the head office, everyone knows that it's a Wellness Friday. We have to do something about self-care. We get together, we talk, we debrief, and we can do exercises, physical exercises outside, so that we incorporate it as a corporate culture where everyone is aware that self-care is an imperative and it's not an option.
I was also thinking about the question of permission, that who grants permission, because the systems that Gloria is talking about, the dominant systems of patriarchy, the dominant systems of capitalist society structured in a particular way, and often demands from women to be in a certain way, or people who identify themselves as women to be in a certain way and to do certain things and to fit certain boxes, and also in a system that is consumer driven. If we don't stop and say, or ask the question, or have the conversation that we are having of who needs to grant permission, then nobody will ever say, okay, now it's okay. We are granting you permission to stop. We are granting you permission to refill, because we are always expected to keep moving, to keep it going, to have the latest whatever gadget. So you have to work hard. And if we don't get that reflection time, like someone said in the prompt, I have a right to reflect. If we don't give ourselves permission to reflect, if we don't give our staff members permission to pause and say, what is happening for you right now? You have had a week of seeing so many or hearing so many horror stories. How are you doing? What is it that you need? Those are spaces, for example, at Sophiatown, when we do supervision, we start with reflection questions, and they are all about self-awareness. What's going on inside of you right now? So that you can say, I'm really angry. I'm really frustrated. I am tired. I'm exhausted. I can't go on anymore, as you are sharing your work. I think that is also another conversation that we need to be having, that the longer we wait for somebody else to give us permission, we are going to wait forever. And I don't know whether, I'm curious to hear Biggie's views on the permission issue.
I am Biggie. Okay.
Oh, you are Biggie. Gloria is Biggie. Juanita.
So I missed sharing in the other session because time was out. But I think what I wanted to say is that I have a right to take a step back, and oftenly I've not been doing that for myself, because I try to avail myself for anything that happens or anybody with an issue. I also forget about myself, and I realized most of the speakers had the same. But what am I trying to say? We must also keep on encouraging ourselves to take care of ourselves. I know at our offices we have within Farouk, we do have wellness activities as a collective, but what I realize is that when you leave your workmates and get back to your home alone, you can slide back. There are so many challenges that people faced even during COVID. Like you stated, that they tell you to you can persevere, please push on and all that. But when you honestly look at yourself, you realize there's something that is not, you're giving less time to yourself. and yet everyone expects you to give support to them. Yet you're forgetting about yourself. First of all, before any other person looks out for you, I think it's important to also for us to realize that we can take a step back, evaluate what we are going through. Is that the right way we are going to survive until we are 40 or until we are 50? Is it going to be healthy? We totally forget about ourselves and tend to give. The psychologists, the counselors who give, who listen to all these traumas, who looks out for them? And if you don't look out for yourself, you end up, by the time people realize that you're going through depression or you're going through a terrible state, when you're in that state, which is very hard, which is costly to come out of. Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Yeah, that's a very important point that you also said, Worry, about, if we don't take care ourselves, if we don't look back and say, what do I have to do? Have you noticed that there's this like a self-blame, this self-blame or a feeling of guilty that you feel that, so-and-so has taken 5 clients and, I've taken 2 today. And yet you really don't feel like, up to it, to taking the 5 clients or the 6 clients that you're supposed to take for the day. And you sort of like self-blame, and you sort of feel guilty to say people will think that I'm lazy, and you start thinking about other people, and you don't even think about yourself and what you are doing to yourself. But to take the step back and say, okay, I need this. In order for me to be available for my clients, I have to do this. And also, that would also join with what I was saying earlier, that the system, our systems have to also incorporate in us, so that everybody is aware that when somebody is not feeling well, it's not that they are lazy or they are self-blaming or that they are not responsible enough, but that it's a strength to be able to know that I am not up to what I should be. I'm not up to taking a client right now. It's for the good of the clients as well and for the good of everybody. Because if I'm going to take that client and I don't feel okay, and then I break down in that room, what have I done? I've caused more harm to the client than good. So it is important to self-introspect, and also for the organizations, the system, to also inbuild the need for self-care so that people don't blame themselves or feel guilty about it. Yeah.
And actually, to add to that, we should make it uncool to drag yourself to work, when you are not well, when you have had maybe a trauma that was, directly affecting you over the weekend. And then this martyrdom, I think there is such a word, where we think that the more I cough at work, the more people are going to see how committed I am. And yet you forget that you are the tool, because when your client comes, you need to be fully with them. You cannot then say to them, I'm so sorry, I've got this flu, I am not well, and then your client must now look after you. So I actually think we should make it very uncool to drag yourself to work when you really are not coping. Lastly, I just wanted to respond to Haley's question on the chat. She asked if we could talk about how we could encourage a colleague who doesn't see a need for self-care. I think for us at Sophiatown, we have these practices that, as Dina says, that we integrate into programs. So it's part of it's part of our soul, if I can put it that way, that we will have a soft like your Friday dinner. We have soft moments where there's a bring and share, and you go around the room bragging about what you've done well this week. And in that meeting, we don't want to know what is wrong. We just want to know what have you done when it's a bragging session, and then we eat good food, and then we laugh at nothings. And that is the joy of the collective. However, to conclude on that, we also need to hold one another accountable. Because if it's an organizational culture, and then we've got that time when we say, hey, Gloria, please go and leave. You haven't been on leave for a while. And then Gloria goes on leave and comes back really tired because they were painting the walls of their house. We then need to be saying, no, but that is not all. We need to also challenge one another. That leave is not for painting walls, especially for women who want to do everything. Leave is for rest. So before I sign your leave form, we might have to talk about, so what are your plans? Okay, you might not have money to go to Zanzibar or somewhere, but how are you going to look after yourself? And when you come back in our first circle, when we are back maybe in supervision, we can then ask, so let's just hear how so-and-so spent their time, if they took time to do something that fills them up. So accountability is also important. That's just what I wanted to say with regards to Haley's question.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you. Sorry, Gloria, did you want to say something really quickly?
Yes, I wanted to supplement a little bit on what you say.
Sure. Okay. And then we'll move on. Okay.
A few pointers. One would be also like leaving your talk, because so many times some people talk about self-care and wellness all the time and never practice it themselves. And especially that comes from people that are in leadership positions, because knowingly or unknowingly, sometimes your staff will then mirror the things you do, right? So if you are a person that wants people to take care of themselves, you need to also take care of yourself. And it's not an easy thing, because for instance, there are moments where I'll probably, let me say, like I have an assignment to give one of the people I supervise, and then you call them, and then you feel like their energy is off. So I will be free. It's also about vulnerability and conversations. Are you well enough to do this? Do you want to do this? Sometimes I may give them assignments. I'm like, I'm going to give you this email, but work on it on Monday. Do not work on it on the weekend. But then also around encouraging people that do not see self-care and wellness as a priority. I have a victim in my organization. My finance person burns her, sorry for the word, but ass off. And I have made it my primary role to always nag and remind her about taking care of herself. So many times, sometimes it's just a wellness check of calling someone, you're like, how are you doing? I pay so much attention to her that I'm now practically watching her like a child. Sometimes I'll be looking at her, I'm like, you're tired. Can you please close your laptop and sleep? Can you please sleep? Or if we have, let me say, like work we need to do together, and then they're like, I need to call you. I'm like, no, we promised each other that we are going to do what? Rest a little bit today. Can we take that off? Because she's always also like the kind of person who's always busy. If she's not working, she's doing other things. So I'm often like nagging her about like, you need to rest. I'm also posing the health risks of what her not resting look like for her. So slowly, like initially she used to hate it, but now every once in a while she'll tell you like, I slept in today. And I'm like, so how are you feeling about that? So it's also sometimes around encouraging, because as people from Africa, and I'm only speaking this from the context of Uganda because I don't know how other contexts work, women traditionally take on a burden of care. So often besides even just work, we emotionally and physically ignore ourselves. So if you see another woman is struggling, whether in your workspace or outside, it is on you to remind them that self-care is not this Western thing that we think. It may be small things like, just sleeping, just reading a book, just like having solitary time. So sometimes you have to remind someone, you have to, like, let me say, be accountable, be the accountability partner. Sometimes the people I just remind to drink water. I will call them and like, did you drink water today? Because sometimes self-care is just, all this digital fatigue. You have to remind someone that you need to take some water as you work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a very enriching conversation, and I'm so happy to have had the privilege to be able to listen to you all really unpack what self-care means for you and for your organizations, because it essentially starts with us as individuals, right? Everything starts with really internalizing it for ourselves so that we can be authentic in how we engage in that conversation. And it can be challenging because life throws so many different things at us that maintaining that authenticity and maintaining that can be very, very challenging. But the idea around guilt also came up, which I thought was really interesting, and how we're conditioned to and programmed because of our social context to feel guilt about particular things that we should absolutely never feel guilty for because of our social programming. And then I also heard really strongly about creating the conditions that necessitate within your organizations people being vulnerable enough to admit when they're having challenges, or you being able to be in a trusting relationship with your colleagues to hold them accountable to some of the things that you're seeing, and creating really trusting spaces within your organizations where people can be authentic, where they can be vulnerable, where they can be seen and they can be heard in a genuine way. So thank you so much for that conversation. We're going to actually take a moment to engage with everybody else in the room now and have a breakout session. And in that breakout session, I'm posing a question, but I really want to say, honestly, have a conversation about whatever comes up for you based on what you've heard shared from our colleagues, because so much has come up. There may be so many nuggets and so many pieces that really resonate with your soul. And so even though there's a question posed to get you started, you do not have to stick to that question. And the question that is posed is, when you think about your work or your organization, what ideas inform or ground your own approach to self-care? Do you see any similarities or differences based on what the organizations have shared? And Healy can potentially post that in the chat so we can see it. But really, as you move into your sessions, just have a chance to talk about what you heard here in this moment and how it really resonated with you. So I think we're going to move into those sessions now. And once again, if you need interpretation, please stay in the main room. Or if you get sent to a breakout room, please come back to the main room if anybody's joined since the last breakout conversation. Thank you so much. And we will continue this conversation after our breakout session. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. It looks like we have maybe a few folks who've stayed in this breakout session in the main room for interpretation. So that's great. I'm glad you all are here. I will be the kind of organizer who's available to help facilitate our conversation here. I don't know if anyone wants to start off with your either responses to the conversation or your reflections on the question about when you think about your work or your organization, what ideas inform and ground your approach to self-care. Would anyone like to get us started? It's hard to know whether the folks who are still in this room are choosing to be here, or whether there may be folks who stepped away from their computers and so didn't end up in the breakout group. So is there anyone who's, even if you don't feel like speaking right now, is there anyone who is participating in this conversation right now? And if so, you can maybe either say so or put it in the chat if you don't feel comfortable coming off mute. So I know whether I'm just talking to myself and the interpreters, or if there's anyone who did want to participate in this breakout conversation. Oh, and yes, please do feel free to speak in Spanish or in French. The interpreters will be translating for me as well.
I've selected English on my end so that I will be able to hear you. So please speak in the language of your choice, English, French, or Spanish, to engage in the conversation. Well, I'm going to stop talking at my screen for a little while, and I'll try again in a couple of minutes to see if anyone did want to be in the conversation. I imagine folks either weren't prepared to speak today, and so you've chosen to be off camera, which is fine, or maybe you've stepped away from your computer, but I'll check in a couple of minutes. So just a quick check-in to make sure that no one who has decided that they would like to participate in the conversation right now in this main room. I think that everyone is either away from their computer or just choosing not to participate vocally today, which is completely fine. So I'm going to move into one of the breakout groups so I can hear the conversation there. And I'll see you all when we return to our main conversation.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a really lovely conversation with your peers in your breakout rooms. We don't have much of a chance, unfortunately, to have a broader conversation about what was shared, but I hope you made some genuine connections in terms of the conversations that you had. I know for us, we really kind of emphasize putting community back into self-care, because self-care isn't just about the self. We exist in relationship to each other. COVID really exacerbated that, because no matter how many long baths you had alone, it couldn't substitute for human connection. And so really fostering organizations and organizational cultures that are part of your community of care for yourself. And so we're going to go into our next fishbowl conversation. I hope our speakers aren't too tired. We just have a little bit more to go. I know it takes a lot to share. And in this one, we're really kind of drilling down about some of the practical tools that folks have been using in their organizations, as well as some of the impact that their self-care work has had on their own colleagues and staff and volunteers. And, kind of what they've continued to learn through implementing these self-care practices within their organizations. And we're going to be joined also by Lara Adukasi. She is the Director of Programs at the Stephen Lewis Foundation. So welcome, Lara, to the conversation.
Thank you.
I'm going to start by just posing a question. Anybody feel free to jump on this question. But, Wari, or actually Gloria, or Dina, could you start by speaking or talking about what practices you're using with your staff and what has been most impactful and why?
Okay.
I can first. Okay.
You want to go first? Dina, go for it. Take the ball. Take the ball.
Okay. Okay, I will. Some of the practices that we are using at Musasa, I think I mentioned a bit earlier on, the Wellness Friday, that has been proved really popular with our staff. So on Fridays, we only attend to emergency cases on Fridays, and then we take a half day. But in the morning, we have this time where we get together, we debrief, and then we go for exercises. We sit together in a room and we share our experiences, our painful experiences during the week by creating that safe space in the morning, share our experiences during the week, how we did our work, and our challenges, the challenges that we meet. Because we've discovered that oftentimes what also exacerbates or makes worse the burnout or the trauma, vicarious trauma that carers face is that you feel that maybe what I did on client so and so and client X and X, maybe I didn't help her to the best of my ability. Maybe you wanted her to make, you thought it was best for her to make this decision. She ended up taking another decision, and you feel that you are a failure. So as you debrief and tell it, talk about it with other counselors, then you have that period of validation where you validate each other that, no, this is what you did was best, and you cannot choose for your clients. They really have to choose for themselves how they want to run their lives, because they have to retain their autonomy. So you feel better that way, so that by the time we go for the weekend, you have really gotten, rid of all the internal baggage or the pain that was really pulling you down, so that you can go and rest for the weekend. By the time you come to work on Monday, you are fully charged, you are ready for your clients. So that is really helpful. We've really found it very helpful. And we also, look out for each other, like what Pumi was saying, to say, if I notice that somebody is not feeling well for that day, you can just go and prompt. I was talking with Mercy, one of the participants in the group. I was speaking with her that one day I had a lot of work that I needed to do, and I took a day off because I was not feeling well. So I went home, and then I was supposed to take 2 days off. Then after one day, I came back to work. And I didn't even think about it. It was like automatic, because I knew that there was this work that had to be done. I didn't think of myself. So when I came to work, my director sort of like came to me straight and said, Diana, why are you here? I know you are not well. And my reply was, I don't know. And for sure, I didn't know. I only came because I had to do that work. Sometimes we don't think about ourselves. So we remind each other, we are each other's keeper, to say, well, so-and-so is not really feeling, up to date. So we need to help them to raise that awareness in them so that they know that they need to take that off. And also, I've also found that in our organizational retreats, sometimes they help where you go out from the workplace and you go for a retreat as carers together, as you share experiences, end up doing games, exercises. By the time you come up after a day or 2-day retreat, you really feel much better. And as we're discussing in our group as well, one of the participants said that they've also incorporated a Wellness Friday, and also they are putting these inspirational boards where they put it in front, so to remind themselves about the need for wellness. And sometimes on these outgoing retreats where they go out of their workplaces, they take potluck with them, and then they share. Bring a basket, and then you go out and then you share. And they found it very inspiring as well. So these are some of the methods that we've been employing, and we've really found it very helpful. The impact that I've actually noticed at Musasa is that the staff energy has really increased. People have become more energetic, because they're always looking forward that, okay, we have to do our work so that by Friday, we don't have a lot, and then we can go and have our Wellness Friday. We can enjoy ourselves. If you are going out for a potluck, then you are going to enjoy yourself, knowing that, you have really earned that and you deserve that. So it has increased the energy and the willingness to work. And we have also noticed that the off-sick time has also reduced. People are not going off sick as before we incorporated this method in our workplace. So I think it has really changed people's outlook to wellness, and it has really impacted the organization, and also it has improved the productivity at the workplace. In the end, we all benefit as individuals, as workers, as volunteers, and also our clients will have better outcomes as well as the organization. So I can say that's my take.
Thank you, Dina. If I'm to share a little bit about what we do at Farouk, I think for us, one of our very most impactful initiatives are the wellness days for staff. So how our wellness days work is not so different from your Friday, but for us, it's every staff is entitled to one wellness day a week. Most of the people take it on Monday, but we do not dictate that this is the day you take it. So you can take it on any day during the week. You get a day that works for you and ask for that. I also like how we've expanded our wellness to include like someone being able to work from home if they're not able to come to office, for them to work online, period leave sometimes, because like at my workplace, you can wake up in the morning and write and you're like, cramps are doing me so badly, I really cannot come to office, and that will be okay, right? But also recently you've been also pushing more for mental health break days, where we want people to be able to have honest conversations about what kind of mental health state they're in on that particular day. So we want to normalize the fact that someone can be like, I can't come to work today because I do not feel mentally okay to be in that space right now, and it is fine. We also do like monthly staff activities and different activities that we do. We can have dinner or lunch together. We can have a drink. We can go to the gym. We can go to steam, sauna. So usually how we do that is it is allowing us to be able to experience different staff members' worlds and what happiness and wellness and self-care looks like for different people. So often, as we are designing a particular activity for a month, we could consult one staff and be like, so what do you do for wellness? So we're also able to do different things and make different staff members feel that how they practice wellness is something that is important for us as well. Because for some people, wellness may look like, let me take a nap. Another person, it would be a good meal. So we want to be as inclusive as possible for what wellness means for different people on our team. And then we also periodically have what we call a staff grievance day. It was an idea that we weren't sure about when we were putting it together, but I like how it's working. And how that works is we meet our staff and settle scores, right, in ways that are loving and affirming. Because sometimes one of the things that cause people burnout or unwellness is at work is heavy hearts. And some of it might come from how staff are interacting with each other. So we create that space where people are able to have honest conversation about, and it is open for everyone, from like management all the way to like junior staff. So it's okay for you to be like, let me give an example. Gloria, you supervise me, and the way you work with me, you shout at me a lot, and I would prefer if you work with me like this going forward, because when you do this, it makes me feel this way. And it has helped us a lot to be able to enable staff adjust to working together, but has also created more of love and community, because then there's this safe space where people can openly talk about things that make them uncomfortable or unwell at work. We also have a therapist, 24-hour therapist, mobile, online, if you want to see them in person. And this is open for our beneficiaries, but for our staff as well. So at any point when someone feels like they need to talk to a psychosocial therapist, they're able to go to them. Then there's the health insurance cover. We do not have a wellness cover like Stephen Lewis, lucky for them. But for me right now, I feel like health insurance is very paramount for us as an organization because of the kind of context that we work in. We are an LGBT organization that works in a country where criminalization is happening, where there's a lot of homophobia, where there are a lot of threats on our lives and organizing. So what happens sometimes is people may go to the field or in their area of work, they may get attacked as they are working. And when we are comprehensively looking at self-care and wellness, we look at it not only from the mental point of view, but also from the physical point of view. So it gives us a lot of joy and pleasure for our staff to know that as they are working, they are able to be taken care of health-wise if anything happened to them in the line of work. And then we have also this thing that we started in COVID, and then it has also been very key for us, which is like we provide like monthly data allowance, but monthly data and sustainability allowance. So with that allowance that we give, someone is able to buy in data for them to be able to appear to be available online. But also the sustainability component of it, what it does is, because people have this money and they're working from home, the sustainability can help them take care of things like contribute towards their rent, contribute towards utility, help them buy food. And in one way or another, it helps our staff feel a little bit more of like the organization is a family, like that safety in knowing that they will take care of me, they can take care of me, they got me. Because sometimes also some of the things that make people feel unwell is that isolation of feeling like I'm busting my ass like crazy, but these people got me in case anything happens. So though we are not able to do it to the extent that we want to, we always try to be intentional about reminding and taking care of our staff and make them know that, we have your back. And then also institutional.
Sorry, Gloria, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just I'm very conscious of the time because we have a hard stop. Unfortunately, this is not an SLF facilitated webinar. We have a hard stop in about 2 or 3 minutes. So I really would love to give Pumi and Lara the opportunity to speak. I apologize for
that's very okay
for pausing your
okay.
thought process. Please don't fault me
Thank you.
for it, but I just want to give Pumi the chance to just jump in really quickly.
Okay, all right. Let me try to do this very quickly without causing unwellness to everybody that is here. I've spoken about soft moments, something that we do to come together to brag about our work, and then we eat something, bring and share. We also have that supervision where vulnerability is allowed. and it's a space to just talk honestly about our clients and support one another in that space. And we also have staff meetings that have got a lot of reflection space where we have a lot of difficult conversations at times, and conversations that affirm that we are also living in this hard world and we are impacted upon. We also have a meeting called the Highlights, Lowlights every second Monday, where we just talk about what were the highlights of your past week, because we come from two different offices based at different parts of Joburg, and then we are able to connect with colleagues from the other office. These were the highlights, these were the lowlights, and sometimes that meeting, it feels like you are being witnessed to, because you can openly share your lowlights and know that you'll be supported and not judged. We also have debriefing sessions when people have been working together on a specific program, maybe a parenting holiday program. And then afterwards, there's time to just reflect back on what worked, what didn't work, and how can we improve. And then we also have where we create opportunities for laughter. This year we have games day, especially on my side of town with my team, where we discuss cases quickly, and then we play those board games, and then our personalities come up, and we laugh a lot and we eat a lot. And then we also have a wellness team that we elect at the beginning of the year, that you need to run with the wellness activities of this team. This year we are calling it the Fun-gizing team, because this is our year of having fun. So we've done things like Christmas in July and whatever themes that we've come up with, just for us to connect and have fun. Let me stop there so that Lara can have a chance.
And Lara, you can just take us out at this point, because we are at time. I just want to thank Healy and everybody on the panel. Healy, the background, Lara, thank you to everyone on the panel. We have a checkout question that is being posed in the chat. So thank you so much. We need more of these conversations. This is what this is telling me. Lara, please feel free to just add a few words and take us to time.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for contributing beautifully to this conversation. At the SLF, so the SLF is actually a feminist organization that provides funds to community-led organizations that are working at the intersection of HIV, that are working towards reducing HIV/AIDS on the continent. And I will speak as a funded organization. One of the things that we do is that we ensure that we provide flexible long-term fundings for our partners like Musasa and Musasa and Sophiatown, where both Diana and Pumi works. We provide flexible fundings that allows them to take care of their staff and also provide their cost supports. And then we also have funding that is intentionally focused for LGBTIQ organizations and also for organizations that work with victims of gender-based violence. We also have funding that is specifically focused on providing well-being support. And from these fundings and from this work, we document learnings. And I think that a good place to round this up would just be to share some of the learnings that we had in our recent learning reports that just talks about the benefit of providing these fundings. I know we've talked about what we do, but for organizations, we just know that one of the things that this does, providing well-being interventions for your staff, helps your staff to bond, and then it also makes them more effective. I won't go into too much details because we are far spent, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for contributing to these conversations and for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.